All right, so pleasure to meet you guys finally in person. Like I said, we will be meeting in person on Thursdays. Tuesdays, we'll be meeting just online. If you want to come here and just sit here and put on the screen and hear my voice, feel free. No one's stopping you. We do have the class reserved. So I hope the first discussion was a kind of an introduction to what like cybersecurity is, stuff like that. And what we're going to do is we are going to dive deeper each week into a different domain of cybersecurity. So the book for this class is the Certified Information System Security Professional, right? This is I guess you could say, one of the top cybersecurity certs for getting a cyber. You should get your Security Plus first and then go forward. A lot of people want to go for the CSSP because the average salary is like $90,000, but Security Plus, then the CSSP, and then you're good, right? So this book, if you look at the actual book, the digital copies provided, they're like 1,200 pages. So the book is intense. And so what I do is I try to lecture about each different domain, and then the assignments kind of correlate to your domain. And then my goal with the assignments are, I'm not big on multiple choice, stuff like that. It's not my whole big thing, just the quiz that you did that. I want you to have assignments that you can later turn into products. You can add those on LinkedIn to further, I guess you can say, help you or assist you in getting employment here in Chicago or where else. If you want to leave Chicago and go to another town that may not be as nice, you can do that. It's a free country. But the goal is to make sure that you're adequately prepared and you're able to compete with other people and stuff like that. So in regard to the first the first lecture and stuff like that, those reviewed the syllabus. Any questions regarding that? Any questions regarding the syllabus and what you saw? There will be 2 TAs assigned to the class, even though this looks packed here. We have approximately 87 students in the class. Last time I checked. Yeah, 87. We're not in the auditorium, thank God, because you won't be able to charge your laptops there. Not my favorite place to hold class. But you will have 2 TAs. And like I said, the TAs will provide adequate coverage throughout the week. So I sent out an email around like 12:30 a.m. Some people have already responded back and booked me already. So I do have office hours. You can book those office hours. Like I said, they're in 10-minute increments. So if you have questions, we can handle it in 10 minutes. Even if you're unable to book the office hours, I had a student today who sent me a message, had a question. I was like, hey, I'm driving. Give me a call. We'll talk while I'm driving. So I'm driving to Chicago. We're talking. And then like within 7 minutes, his problem was handled. So not a big ordeal. This class does have a prerequisite. The prerequisite should be like a basic networking class. We will be doing a lot of stuff dealing with networking. Like we'll talk about network protocol and stuff. We'll do a lot of stuff. Setting intrusion detection system. We'll set up tripwire. We'll talk about the open source version of Splunk. Splunk is a really good tool to use. We'll talk about Nmap, Wireshark, and then we get into the network penetration part. It's needed to have like a basic understanding of network and stuff like that. Now we'll do the software security part. With that, you don't necessarily need to know a coding language in depth at all, because the software is going to tell you where the faults are, how to fix them, and you can research how to fix that stuff. Now, when we get to the last part of the class, the intense project, you will need to select a group or group members that may be able to program. The easiest I tell people is Python. You can do it in C++. I don't care what you do in it. You can do it in whatever language, but the easiest is just Python because you can knock it out quick. Because there's a lot of other tasks you have to do when you have to build it according to very specific cybersecurity controls, the NIST 853 controls. And so you have to, Rev 4, so you have to build your item to meet those requirements. All right. If you send me a request on LinkedIn, I will try to accept it. I do have a lot of requests. Not bragging or anything, but I will accept it. I'm just like, if I'm on LinkedIn, I'm either like heading to bed or like brushing teeth, and I'm like, oh, let me reshare this and reshare it. I'm not on LinkedIn. Like if I'm reposting something, I'm probably doing something else. I'm probably like cooking and like, okay, something's cooking. I have like 10 minutes. Okay, steak doesn't look done yet. And I'll start posting and sharing stuff like that too, because it's very sporadic and awkward times that I'm on there. So it seems like I'm on there, but the share button, to write something quick, to talk, stuff's fairly easy. All right. So again, we're going to cover different domains, and we are hopefully everybody online can see this presentation. So I will be sharing from this screen. All right, so this is one of the different domains. And so what's interesting, cybersecurity is broad. So cybersecurity started off as automated information system security, then it was IT security, then it was IS security, then it was cybersecurity. So and it was information assurance as well before cybersecurity. So it's very broad. The term just changes. That's it. Same thing, same principles. Cybersecurity has been around for more than 2 decades. The U.S. military used cybersecurity to secure a number of critical components. If you look at a lot of the particular guidelines and guidance, it comes from the Department of Defense and the National Security Agency. If you look at software engineering, for those that are software engineering minors or computer science majors or whatnot, or minors, a lot of the CS stuff comes from the military. IEEE, DoD, those STIGs or those standards come from there. So a lot of this flow within. If you do system engineering, it comes from a group called NAVAIR, which is Navy Air Force, out of Patuxent River, Maryland, out of the base, and those standards come from that organization. So a lot of the stuff cross-pollinates. I always tell people, you can do one technical degree, like in CS, cybersecurity, you can do several of them. They're just the same thing over and over. You're just learning how to apply different principles to different problem sets. That's it. So you'll see here, like you have breadth and depth. So here it shows area of specialty, operate and maintain, protect and defend. When we looked at cyberseek.org, they broke everything down in these particular specialty areas. So these are all the different things that you can do within cyber. Now you look at breadth of disciplines, and here it just shows security controls, which we'll go over. These are the NIST 853 controls. There's high trust controls. There's ISO controls. There's a ton of them. The controls are just particular standards that say, hey, you need to add encryption for this. You need to add two-factor authentication. Data at rest needs to be encrypted. That's all it is. And so it will say that you need, out of these 100 controls, if your system is, rated low, you need to have 50 of them applied. So these are just baseline controls. So many systems can have these particular same set of controls. All right. So say you and I we're talking, right? We're sharing items and stuff via our mobile device. My particular device, say my device is not hardened at all. It's very open. Anybody can connect to the device and Bluetooth to my device, but your device is extremely protected. So now we are operating on our, let's say, we both have personal area networks that are connected, right? So I become the weak link because now I am working with you and it's my system that's causing issues. So these controls help companies have a common language and a baseline. So if I'm working with this company and they say they're secure, I can know what level they are secure to, and I can assure that. Has anybody here heard of the capability maturity model index?
I vaguely remember that from my internship.
Okay. So probably years before you were born, when I was in high school, the biggest thing was outsourcing. Outsourcing was extremely huge. And everybody went to India for IT. And this is what changed India quite a bit because back then, India didn't have processes, right? You had a ton of superstars, right? So if you have a team, is it best to have a superstar or just 5 average guys who are able to do the same thing over and over? What's better, the one superstar or the 5 average guys that are going to do the same thing over and over?
5 guys.
The 5 guys, yes. And so that's what India had. They had superstars, right? They had superstars. So superstar does great. They meet their product, and then they don't want to pay the superstar. He's like, all right, see you guys later. He leaves. Another organization hires that company, and they can't do half of what they did. So process became a big thing in terms of getting everyone out and saying, hey, these are the standards. These are repeatable steps you can do. This is measurable. And we'll talk about CMI later, but that rolls into that. And so that deals with controls, best practices, and then depth of knowledge, right? So here's systems, software, network engineering. There are many different things you can do in cyber. You can do GRC, which is governance risk compliance, basically cybersecurity controls, I call this the checklist person, right? They just put ticks on checklists. Do you have locks in your door? What type of locks are they? Do you change passwords every 30 days, 60 days? Do you have different types of authentication? Right? There's a job for that, and it pays well, believe it or not. It's not exciting. There's nothing sexy about the job, but it pays good. Then you have jobs that people do hardcore cryptography, right? The NSA has what they call Type 1 cryptography, and it's a product and software combined where you use NSA algorithms and stuff like that. So you have those really detailed jobs. Then you just have like networking jobs that add in security, same with cloud computing with security. So there's different flavors and different things you can do. So what everyone should do, everyone should have an area that they have depth in, right? So when you learn cyber or any field, you should have breadth. You should know you have a general system concept, right? So say you do software, right? You understand about the software process, software lifecycle. You understand how to do requirements engineering. You maybe you understand like that general stuff, right? How you should document your code and stuff. And then in terms of depth, you're an expert in Python. You're an expert in R or C sharp, right? Then you have depth, and that is what's important to have because you're not going to be an expert in everything. There's no way. I mean, you could, but I think everybody's goal is to probably make a lot of money, right? Make a lot of money, pay bills, whatever. So if you focus your career on becoming an expert in everything, you're gonna get nowhere. You understand the larger picture, and then you have some depth to you, and you'll be good. And so here, this is what it shows. There's also security certification and creation. This kind of deals with the family controls. There's different, it's called CNA, certification creation you can do. Healthcare, Department of Defense, NATO. There's so many different accreditation processes. Healthcare organizations say, "Hey, I need to bring the system aligned to my hospital." Well, they need to meet certain controls. A bank will have certain controls. So you can just become an expert in a family controls and how to apply them. And that could be your whole job. Yeah, if you want to work international, common criteria is a big thing. Bless you. Common criteria is a big thing. So you just got to find your way through and see what works for you. All right, there's 3 different objectives. Confidentiality, that means only those who have clearance can see the information. Because just because the information is available, it doesn't mean you should be able to see it. So the government works like this. They have unclassified, then they have secret, and then they have top secret. Within those 3 classifications, there's caveats. Top secret will have what they call sensitive compartmentalized information. You do like a polygraph for that. They come and say, "What have you done your entire life?" Make sure you're not like a undercover terrorist or something crazy, right? You're not really like a supporter of Russia. And then they have special access programs. These are programs that are special access. Again, something else. So you have those. In the commercial world, when I say commercial, this is non-federal government. Low, medium, high is what they generally have. And you don't have intense security checks at all, right? So my family, military family, so we've all had security clearances. And so the first clearance I got, I was 17. They went back to my elementary teachers and stuff to interview the family and all that other stuff, because it's pretty intense. So when you deal with a secret, it's loss of information can cause, or disclosure can cause serious damage. When it's top secret, it can cause grave damage, right? And then again, they have also a lifestyle polygraph where they have you to a machine and they ask you all types of questions, any question, and you can only fail twice. You fail twice, you can never get a clearance again. So they're pretty serious. Integrity basically means that if I tell you something, if I say class is going to be at 3:15, right? That if sorry,
you lose your integrity.
Correct. Right. Now I do come late sometimes, so don't take that seriously. The coffee runs are serious, but if it's something like imagine if it's a bank, right? And I'm sending him money, but the money isn't what it should be. It's a big issue. It is a huge issue, and that can snowball into larger things. And so there's different ways to show integrity, right? How many people here are downloading random files on the internet? What are you downloading? I'm recording, so please be careful.
Okay, then we won't go.
All right, what are you downloading?
Movies.
Okay, like torrents and what?
Yeah.
Okay. So how do you check to make sure those movies don't have like spyware or?
First download into a VMware
Okay.
virtual machine, then you can scan it. And if it does infect it, we just delete the virtual machine.
Okay, so your movie, it's you're playing like VLC movie player or something like that, right?
Yeah.
All right, you're running your base OS is what?
Well, I'll be using a Lenovo, not my Mac.
I mean, your base operating system, is it like Windows? Is it Mac?
Windows.
It's Windows?
Yeah.
And your VM is what operating system?
VMware.
But okay, are you running Mac in your VM?
No, I'm running like Linux Mint.
Oh man, you're downloading viruses. You can't do it like that. All right, for those that are downloading movies without the best intentions, if you're going to download a movie to even scan it, you need to. The virtual machine should mimic your actual environment, right?
Okay.
So if you're downloading it and you're downloading it in Ubuntu and it doesn't hurt it, probably the malware or whatever is not going to affect Linux. But then when you move it to your other machine, then you're screwed because it's meant to affect your other machine. Mm-hmm. Most people write viruses for Windows, Mac, and then Linux. So if you're doing that, going forward, create a VM, make sure your VM is not connected to your base machine, your host. So that means that if you get a virus in your VM, it doesn't spill over in the VM and touch your host machine.
Gotcha.
Run it there, let it run for about a week. Then if your movie it's okay, I don't know what you're downloading, I'm not going to ask, but whatever movie, it's okay, then you're okay to move it to your base OS.
What if you have an antivirus?
Okay, so antivirus is kind of worthless. Antivirus picks up on signatures, known signatures. Yeah. Right? You pay more, you can get better anti-AV, but most AV it picks on signatures. So you can change a few things about a particular file and resend it through an antivirus and don't get through. Yeah, so don't think the antivirus is going to be like saving everything at all. So that is one of the issues. You can go on the dark web, and we will go on the dark web here, and you can find instructions on how to change things to get malware easier through AV. And in the back?
It's just actually like getting a virus from like an M4 file is very low because it would have to be a vulnerability in the thing reading it to like VLC or something, right? Because I mean, it's just data.
Well, so yeah. So the thing is, like VLC is open source, right? So a lot of people don't necessarily go to the VLC site or SourceForge. The problem is with integrity, we'll talk about it later, you can do hashes, right? You can compare hashes, say I have this hash here, and this is the file that's downloaded, and it's the same hash. Some people won't even check. So imagine a person that goes to some random site or some shareware, they download VLC, not realizing that that VLC has a lot of malware built in it, because you can have one program and another program that download and that they create some malware together. And so that's a sneakier way to do things. And so that happens. For example, Linux Mint, it was a couple years ago, someone uploaded an infected copy of Linux Mint. I think, yeah, it was Linux Mint. They uploaded an infected copy, and millions downloaded because they didn't check the actual hash. They didn't look at the hash. They just didn't like, oh, it's on a website, we're good. They download it and then realized they had an infected operating system. The entire operating system was infected. So that becomes an issue because how many people are looking at hashes when you download stuff? No?
Only was
Just you?
56 checksum, yes, sir.
Okay. What operating system are you running? Okay. You're like halfway there.
Well, I had Mint dual booted on my computer for a while, but it's gone.
Okay. What happened to the Mint?
Well, I just said it's taking up too much space. I want more space for my Windows because I don't really use it all.
Gotcha. Yeah, so that's something as well, like emails, right? Even with emails, you can add your digital signature to prove that it's you, right? Everybody's got an email. Everybody knows a Nigerian prince. Does anybody know a Nigerian prince? You don't know a Nigerian prince? Really? I'm going to call some relatives, and they're going to send you some emails, okay? Just don't give them your bank information. They will take you all the way. But one of the things is, it was a couple years ago, we had a former dean, Dr. Bob Carlson, right? So I'm in a meeting, I'm rushing the meeting, and I get a message, and it looks like it's from from him, right? On your mobile device, it's hard to inspect and see the actual address. So you can just say, it just said Bob calls. So like, okay, this is Bob's message, whatever. So I'm in a meeting. He's like, Maurice, I need a favor from you. Can you do X, Y, and Z? And he's asking for this favor. I'm like, wait a minute. You calling Maurice? Like, no one calls me Maurice, like just outside people. Like if you knew me on the street, like, oh, hey Maurice, hey, how's it going? But like people who know me, they'll say Mo. I'm like, this is not Bob. I clicked on it and it said something at Gmail. I was like, all right, perfect. So he's like, oh, I need you to buy some gift certificates. Oh, sure, I'll do that. So I sent him a bunch of viruses and I said, just unzip the file. But I was in a rush, right? So I'm in a rush. I'm in a meeting. So normally I'd be like, all right, I'll do X, Y, and Z. But like, let me look at this further. It just because of some key things. All right, availability. This just means that the system is available. You can't have a system that's down, right? You lose money, right? Especially if you have a cloud-based business. You have an online store and your servers are down, just lost money. So availability is important. There's also a way to measure availability. They have like 4 nights, 5 nights, stuff like that, which we don't cover. That's really engineering, but there's also availability of systems that come into play as well. All right, so here are different implementation principles. So you have need to know. This basically means that the users who need to know something, they have access. But if you don't need to know, you don't. So say we both have top secret clearances, right? But I'm working on this program, and he's like, yo, Mo, can I get this information? I'm like, well, no, because you're not in the program. So he has to be read onto the program. He has to be shown that what he's doing in the program is critical enough for him to get access. So that's all need to know is. Least privilege, you give people the least privileges possible to do the job. Extremely important, right? So it's like,
least privilege.
Sorry?
Isn't it called the principle of least privilege?
yes, I was thinking about the examples like you have you're engineering, you're a manager, right? You're a manager and you have the ability to see people's salaries. All the people's salaries. Should the employee see everybody's salary?
No.
No, right? So that's all that is. Like, imagine the issues that it will cause. Like, the person who's a janitor, he have access to all these systems. No, he just needs access to the buildings and stuff like that. That is it. He does not need to log in. He doesn't need to be able to pull things up. He just needs the least privileges possible to do his job. Separation of duties. This one's a pretty interesting. So this basically says no person should be responsible for completing the entire task from start to end themselves, right? No person should do that. And plus, they shouldn't be responsible for approving their work. I'm not gonna lie, like if I was the one approving my work, I wouldn't do quality work. Right? Who's checking? I'm checking myself. It's like, did I write that well? Yeah, it's good. It's good enough. It's checking. There's no checks and balances. And so all this is saying that it need to be check and balance and stuff like that. The other item with separation of duties that helps out later is understanding how to audit people to look for issues, security issues as well. If you have issues and you want to see if someone's actually doing something they should be doing in their account, this would be like a time for like mandatory vacation. And you could see if someone's, working with someone as well. But we'll talk about that later. So you have these job rotation, reduce the risk of collusion, and then ensure there's no single point of failure. What is truly, I guess, very non-productive is being in an organization where there's one person who knows everything about that one particular item and no one else knows. You should always have a backup, always, right? So imagine if we'll just talk about like McDonald's, right? We'll think about McDonald's. The person who is in managing McDonald's, that person's out, he gets hit by a bus, God forbid, and it closes down, right? It shouldn't close down because something bad happened. There should be someone to be able to step in a job. This deals with like 360-degree leadership, training those below you to the side. So when you take a move, you leave the organization, the show should still continue. Mandatory vacation. So we were talking about I brought it briefly. You do not want to review records of someone who's actually there at work. Would you want someone coming to your computer or your desk, checking to review all your stuff? How would you feel? You said violent?
Yeah, Why would someone even touch your device? Or your paper?
So I send you on vacation, have a great vacation. You leave, you have fun with your partner or family, and then I go and I snoop through all your stuff. But yes, violence. I have seen firsthand violence. I have witnessed violence. Yes.
It depends on like if it's mentioned. 'Cause some companies like do search, but like they have like notices about like your stuff and things. Like it's and mostly like some of the companies that like at least I understand would search like stuff that they own. But if it's searching like your own personal laptop or phone, then there might be issues.
I mean, so the thing is, when you're with the organization, say you've been there for years, it's like you feel like it's your space. Like you're going to be at work more than home. So it's like your personal space, right? That's why people make jokes about having a work spouse and stuff like that, because you're there so much. So now you're there, they're coming in and they're going through your stuff and they're, like, okay, looking at it, you're like, you feel like they've breached. Yes.
Yeah, I feel like they would question my competence in my position or so, or if they're prejudiced and think that I've done something wrong, and I haven't really done anything to show that point. So I think for the employee, certainly, just from like an IO psychology standpoint, like their work ethic and like the way they perceive their work would change dramatically at that point. And so they've been like deceived or something by their employer.
And people don't want to be sued as well, right? We have so many initiatives going on, right? There's so many initiatives going on, so you just can't walk up to someone's desk without expecting any confrontation, right? Companies don't want to be sued. Like they went to their desk, like you said, it could be racial, it could be religious, it could be something, it could be anything. So rather not to have to worry about those problems, have a great time, enjoy, stay an extra day. Don't worry about the PTO, just hours on us, but just go through stuff like that, right? And then if you discover something, okay, good. If not, they had a good vacation, they've gotten recharged, they're ready to go back to work. All right, so here shows relationships between threat, risk, and countermeasure. Threat agent is an entity that will act on a vulnerability. The threat, any potential danger to an information lifecycle. Vulnerability is a weakness or a flaw that can provide an opportunity to a threat agent. There are a number of ways to find vulnerabilities. When we do a source code analysis, we will run a tool. It can run like 500,000 lines of code in like 10 seconds, and it will find all the vulnerabilities that you can later exploit. It's an amazing tool. Risk is the likelihood that you can exploit that particular vulnerability. So risk, if you generally is like 0 to 100, right? And you will actually do risk later on in this class. If a risk is 80% or more, it is no longer a risk. It's a known fact that's going to happen, right? Now, we can't use the weatherman here in Chicago. He's pretty bad. But generally, if they say it's an 80% chance of rain, it should rain. So when you understand that a risk is no longer a risk, it is going to occur, then you have to take proactive measures to handle that particular item. Exposure. An instance of being compromised by a threat agent, and then you have a countermeasure safeguard, administrative or technical method to mitigate the risk. In terms of classifications, when you have countermeasure, you have the threat and the vulnerability, that is generally classified, right? Classified, or it's kept secret to the level of that particular system. And so when you have those type of documents, they're usually set aside and only for certain eyes to see. Security controls. Now, controls are good. Managing operational, technical safeguards or countermeasures employed within the organization information system to protect the AIC, right? Availability, integrity, confidentiality. Like I said, the controls serve as a baseline, and they're amazing because you don't have to build stuff from scratch. I talked about how many jobs there are, right? There's too many jobs. So with the controls, if you use a particular framework or control set in place, and you can build your system around those framework, those controls, and those particular framework, and you can test against those, and then you are not starting from scratch, right? Easily safeguard a system, and then from there manage and be able to measure the effectiveness. All right, here it just says have these select controls. Is a realistic plan for the implementation? When you select controls, the controls should be based upon the classification of the information, right? That's how the controls are, usually low, medium, high. When we go to controls, you see low, medium, high, And if your system has medium information, then you will apply those controls and then see which controls are actually applicable. That's a whole nother thing. Different types of controls. So management controls, policies, standards, processes, procedures, guidelines, operational physical, gun gates and guards. Those are physical controls. A lot of people tend to forget about physical security. It's important, right? Physical security is important. We'll do an exercise later in the semester where we talk about physical security more. You'll choose a dangerous location. I'll talk about Chicago. So, because a lot of outsiders will say Chicago's top 10 dangerous city. Is it top 10 dangerous, guys?
I'll say so.
Say so. Where are you from?
Southside, Little Village.
No, it's not.
That's
Chicago's not even top 10.
no.
No, St. Louis is number one. And that's where I moved from. I moved from St. Louis. I lived in like the nicest area of town, and I could hear gunshots every day from my house. My daughter still says, Daddy, I remember I thought it was fireworks. You told me to go outside because they're shooting again. Right? So I think Chicago is outside the top 20. It's pretty safe here. I mean, people are getting killed, but it's still safe by American standards. By American standards, it's pretty safe. After that is Detroit. And even Memphis is up there. Even Memphis is top 10. Yeah, I'm actually headed there for a family reunion next week. So, whew, don't worry, I have my gun with me.
I just came from there actually about like,
Did
a
you?
few weeks ago. Yeah, my aunt sent me there.
Okay. I'll tell you the exact area after I'm not recording, but yeah, I have my packet. Okay. So we'll talk about that because that is important. There's so many things with physical security that we don't think about, right? And we'll talk about physical security in depth. Then we'll talk about technical controls. So here is CERT. This is the incident response, help desk. Here's showing action control, identification, authorization. So these are just more controls. This is an example of categories of controls: management, operation, technical. So family risk assessment, planning, security assessment, authorization, program management, personnel security. Personnel security is a family on its own because not every security guard is going to be, everybody doing physical security is not going to be the same, right? The person who is doing physical security or security guard at like McDonald's, do you think they're really trained to save your life? Do you think they will save your life if people start shooting? No, they're not. Right? However, the security guard that's working with the White House, do you think they're prepared? Okay, never mind. The riots kind of killed that one. But in theory, they should be prepared to save your life. In theory, right? And a lot of the federal buildings with like various three-letter agencies and military bases, those guards they're ready, right? They say, hey, if you come past here, we shoot, and they shoot, they kill, right? So it's very different. And so when we talk about personal security and why is the family, there are different types of checks that you will do for personnel security to make sure that they're appropriate. All right. So CNSS, this is the Committee on Security Standards, is from the NSA, and there's a different instructions, and that's all this is. Talk about different instructions. FIPS is Federal Information Processing Standard. There's FIPS 199, 140-2, it deals with cryptography. And these are just, the government loves acronyms. There's lots of acronyms. Do not spend time trying to memorize them all. The only reason I memorized them all because I needed money to pay for school. So I started in the military, Army, Navy. I needed to pay for school. And then doing that, I memorized a lot of the stuff because it was drilled to me. But it's I wouldn't say it's not useless. It's not the best use of your brain capacity memorizing all that stuff. All right, so here's talking about the concept of security requirements. Requirements engineering is a whole class on its own, right? And system engineering degrees, there's a book for Bricky and Blanchard, like Principles of System Engineering, and that book is used for 4 system engineering classes at Hopkins, right? Or Johns, they're from Baltimore. And one is system engineering, requirements engineering, sorry. And so you have functional requirements. So it defines the behavior of the system, and then assurance establishes the confidence that it will perform as intended. So we'll look at functional up here. SC3, that's the family. Security function isolation. The information system isolates security functions from non-security functions. The functional is what you shall do. Requirements, you have to say, you only say what you shall do. You don't say what you won't do. Sorry?
Janitor does not need access to the server room.
Yeah, well, no, you have to say shall. Like, yeah, something like that. You shall only provide this, but you only say what you will do. So if you don't state that the janitor, if you don't state that the janitor has access, then it's assumed that he doesn't. So you only state what you will do. Right? So you have shall, which means it's a threshold requirement. You have to meet it. When you use the word will, it's objective. Yeah, it's a whole field. I don't know, but I did it. But that's all that is. Here's the NIST 853, Rev 4. So protection profile, target evaluation, security target. These are the 3 artifacts that are part of the Karman criteria. It's an ISO standard. I think it's 15430, something like that, but it's a whole ISO standard. Security function requirements, security assurance requirements. You get an evaluation. So the evaluation goes to evaluated assurance level 1 through 7. 1 through 4. 1 through 4 is it can be shared among a number of countries, and it just means that you don't have any classified information or any information that deals with that country's security. So anything 4+, which means a requirement from EAL5, it's part of the 4 evaluation, doesn't occur, then that can be passed on any country. 4+ has to be done like this country, National Security Agency, the United Kingdom, the Communications Electronic Security Group. That's all that means. And Karman criteria, when I mentioned certification creation, understanding this process, the artifacts, how to build products to this, that itself is a job. All right. If you don't do the Karman criteria, there's something called the Army Approved Products List. They have something very similar. It's Fort Huachuca. It's a crappy place in America. Trust me on this. And you do the same thing just for the Army. So a lot of these processes are the same throughout. The same. The terminology change, but in terms of testing, requirements, all that other stuff, it's pretty much the same. Different types of controls, directive controls. They intend to advise employees on behavior expected of them. Preventative basically prevents them from doing things. They're physical, administrative, technical measures intended to preclude actions violating policy. Detective, this is kind of self-explanatory. Corrective, basically to controls to reduce behavior or eliminate the opportunity of unwanted events. And recovery, these are controls to recover. Yes.
Okay, so with preventative control, for example, I have my, or not like a cat card or something. If I have my work laptop.
Oh, you said cat card. So common access card. So there's different types of authentication, right? Something you have, something you know, and something you are. Something you have, cat card is, you're given a card. It usually has PKI. These are digital certificates loaded on there. Something you are, fingerprints, eye scan or whatever, and it's something social security number, stuff like that. So the cat card, you usually get a cat card, and then you have like a passcode that you have. So it serves as strong authentication. All right.
No, I was gonna say if I have like my work laptop or so, and I try to connect it to an unauthorized network or something, it just doesn't work or so. Is that what's called a preventative control or so, where it just won't function?
Correct. Yeah, because basically they're trying to prevent you from doing something stupid, right? They're like, look, I know you. Maybe you don't understand what it means, or like, hey, we're just preventing you. Like for a number of years, the government would actually not allow you to put USBs. Like the USBs were all like disabled. All the USB ports are disabled. So for that one person who brought a USB on there, tried to put it in there, it wouldn't work. Which was smart, because later what happened with Snowden, he leaked all the information. And again, you can put so much on a USB stick. Additionally, if you're using one of these SD cards, some of them are a gig, right? Are you going to track everyone that and pat everybody down? There's a few organizations, I forgot what the actual term is, but before you go to work, you stand on something and they check your actual weight. You go into the office, and then before you leave, you have to be within a certain amount, a percentage of the pound or whatever when you leave. You say what?
Just reacting to that.
Oh yeah, it's pretty serious because like if you work in a certain organization where like we have this war going on with Ukraine and Russia, and you're working on super classified stuff that's type sensitive, you don't want a particular employee taking that stuff out, right? Or if you're working at a bank and you understand, various things that are going on and things of a particular nature, you don't want people leaving with the information. So they want to make sure, like, okay, you're 4 pounds heavier. All right, come here, bud. I know you didn't eat that much during lunch. Like our lunch is not even that good. So what are you taking out?
And it's the same thing. Like, for example, I know some companies, if you try to send an email from your work email to your personal email, they just terminate you on the spot.
I don't know about that. And this day and age, I don't know about terminating for that.
They usually don't allow to send an email outside of all office. Sometimes there's a preventive control.
Yeah, I mean, there's no control to do that. That will only, maybe it won't be like, it won't allow certain domains to be hit, and that's what they do. So you can do it on the firewall. You can say, all right, you cannot, do stuff with certain domains and things that could be set. You do like a software-based firewall stuff policy setup. So when we do scripting, one of the cool things about scripting is you can create an automated script that you can roll out through the entire organization, through the enterprise. So you don't have to go and try to do every single system. There's a system. One open source is called Chef, and it does script automation, stuff like that. You just roll it through the enterprise. And you harden everybody's system, and everybody has the same policies. And so that's preventative. So people aren't doing things that they shouldn't do. Because no matter what, people are going to do some stupid things, right? And then in some organizations, you can't be fired. You just can't. Like federal government, after so many years, it's like you get tenured. And imagine how difficult it is. Imagine when I said some clearances with the federal government, you have to get a polygraph and stuff like that. You go through this intense clearance. You think they're going to fire you just for doing something stupid like that? Probably not. You may, and there's other stuff that, certain websites that people go on and stuff like that. So I know stories of people who've done things that in the real world, I say the real world, like, in the industry, that they would get terminated over. But they were sent home from work with pay. They went back, did the same thing, went back, and they were told, hey, don't do this, we're going to transfer you. So different environments, there's different things that occur. All right, due care, due diligence. So you have to show, so here it says policies and implementation action that an organization has taken to minimize its tangible and intangible assets. And then due diligence, these are continuing actions, right? So due care. Due care is saying, all right, I'm worried about someone trying to get to my system, right? So I set up a firewall. That is my due care. Sorry, it's my due care. Now, due diligence is that I need to update the policies all the time. I need to do checks. I need to make sure I change the default password. So it's not enough saying that, hey, I set this item up. I have to show that I'm continuously making changes, updates, and stuff like that appropriately. All right, how many people here have changed their home router's password? That's it.
What?
Your home router, you changed the default password, all that stuff. Right. You'll be shocked how many people don't. I would hope you guys being ITM students that you change it, but you'd be surprised how many people do not change their default password. You can easily go online. You can go on the home networks. You can you say, okay, I see this network here. Run a particular scan, and you can see what particular operating systems are running. And then from there, okay, it's probably default. They don't do anything. And then look up the default items because they're all available online. Most of them are. And then log into your system. Not saying do it, but I'm just saying it can be done. All right, so here, this is the ring modes of protection. So if you're familiar with Linux, the kernel is right here at 0, and ring applications are all the way out here. And then there's the OS, there's the OS utilities and applications. Root, how do you get to root? How do we get to root? I would say SU. Okay, so sudo, right? Super user.
Sudo.
Yeah. So basically, what this is showing that every particular item within the operating system is layered, is protection. You just can't go and do whatever you want, which is good because if you're running malware or something like that, it just isn't run by itself. you need to invoke root privileges. So what was interesting, Windows didn't have it at all. Like you could go in and make all types of changes with Windows because they did not employ a ring of protection. They just had admin and user. So before you could restart the system, go into safe mode, create another user. That user would be admin, log out, go into admin, remove the password of the users, restart, and then go back in. Now I used to do grocery shopping. I was really just breaking to the machines at like Walmart and stuff. But that was fairly easy. Now what's interesting, even with the latest Windows, you can, if you have a live USB, right, you can just restart a system. And a lot of times they don't safe code the password to protect the BIOS. Go into BIOS, change it to boot from the USB, and then start lifting things that are on the actual desktop to the USB. A lot of your recovery, is anybody here doing forensics? Anybody forensic? So a lot of your recovery stuff will be Linux based. So you can just bring that stuff and just bring it up. Plus, when you wipe a system, you have to do, I think it's four purges to get rid of everything. So if you're going to dump your machines, they will end up in a developing country and they will take it, they'll catfish, do whatever, but you need to have a approved degaussing application. And it takes a long time. All right, this is defense in depth again. So here's just showing a physical security model. So here you can see like you have just a lot of stuff from the physical security standpoint that deals with defense and death. UPS generators, alarms, officers that are on site, server operations monitoring, electronic motion sensors, defense and death. You need to have that, right? An easy way to think about this, think about your home, right? You should have layered protections at home, right? You think about, you have a fence up, and someone's going to break into your house. They must really want to break into your house. You have a fence up, right? Beware a dog. There's a dog. If they get past the fence, they go in the fence. They choke snuffles to death, and your door has a camera, and they kick open the door, and it makes an alarm, and they're still going. At that point, your security measures should have given you enough time to either move things that you care about or to consider last minute items, meaning in this country, shoot somebody, right? You get shot. But that's what defense in depth does, because it should make the actual intruder really reconsider how much effort they have to put in to get into your home. Right? It's all about work effort. It's too expensive, it's too timing. The risk for them is great. It's like, man, I broke into this house last weekend. I'd have to choke Snuffles. Snuffles is actually really big German Shepherds, and now they're hurting, and they're like, they had all these warnings, and they said beware the dog, and on the door it says, I will shoot people, probably for Texas. I will shoot you on sight. Like, they have to think. And so when you think about cybersecurity, you should think about the same thing when employing defense and death. They should have to work extremely hard. With any of this stuff dealing with security, it's not saying it can't be broken, right? But what you're doing is you're slowing down the particular intruder. It's taken them a long time, right? So for someone who's doing hacking, stuff like that, you want something that's easy, right? Unless it's like a big target, because you have different levels of attackers, right? You have nation state at the top. They have resources of the entire country. Think about Stuxnet and Flame like that. What happened in Iran? Nation state. Then you think about criminal groups. Then you think about hackers. Then you think about script kiddies, right? So there, you think about how much money they can actually wield to do their attacks and stuff like that. We're going to just go through here. All right, so here is just information security governance in a nutshell. There is actually a certification that deals with GRC. There's one through IC Squared, and there's another organization that deals with it as well. But this deals with policies, standards, processes, and guidelines. And there's many that apply for different sectors of work. There's a ton of them. That's why I say there's lots of acronyms, do not memorize all the acronyms, but when you think about what field you want to work in, then you could think about, okay, I want to learn about this particular governance structure. I always tell people, understanding the NIST 853 is the best because a lot of particular organizations, they copy off those particular controls. So you can know those high level controls, and then you can go to any organization, and it's just like, oh, I know this control already. Encryption for data in transit. Oh, I know I can meet that. All right, so here is us talking about policies. They explain laws, regulations, and business mission needs. Identify roles and delineate responsibilities. So examples, EO is executive order. These are presidential orders. So presidential directives, executive orders, federal OMB circulars, military, DoD directives, manuals, and intelligence, DSCID, or it's actually just Central Text Directive now. This is like Defense Intelligence Agency. It's what this is for. Very few people come in control with this particular type here. Working in this type of organization, their controls are intense, meaning like if you're working on a system that has this, there's a separate network drop that's approved by the intelligence community. You're working in a room that may be guarded. There's a certain amount of crawl space. There's white noise generator. There's the power is separate, classified power, black and red power is what it's called. All this stuff is kept separated. It's a lot of stuff. It's a lot. Very few people end up working in that space. Roles and responsibilities. So information owner, these are the people that are responsible for the protection of assets. The custodian, these are the people that actually manage. They're actually managing the information. Security managers, analysts, network and system database administrators. User, these are just people who are using the information, right? That's all it is. The people who are actually on the system. And then you have the auditor. So military says white, blue, red teams, IG, inspector general. You have purple teams now. Commercial auditors, black hat teams. These are just people who are coming to audit system. And auditing is a job as well. You could actually have an entire career being an auditor. Companies, one company, NCC Group, they're here in Chicago. They will hire you to be an auditor. You'll come in and you'll actually travel around the country, around the globe, and you'll audit their systems. The gentleman who I mentioned, her name is Soria. He's going to speak. He's actually that's what he does. He's an auditor. They go around the globe and they audit companies. Say this company is working with this particular bank. The bank says, okay, I want to make sure that you're meeting our controls. They're not going to say anybody. They're going to hire this auditor, and this auditor comes in, and that's what they do. And they charge a lot for auditors. So doing cyber, there are lots of ways to make money, right? You don't have to necessarily work for an organization. You can work for yourself. You get your cert, to get some experience, you can go contract yourself out. All right, so here are different standards, mandatory activities, actions, and rules for the execution of management. FIPS, that's what I mentioned earlier. That's the Federal Information Processing Standard. Department of Defense regulations, manuals, intelligence, commercial. These are ISO standards, 27001, BS 7799. These relate a lot to these. So here, just showing more standards. So the common criteria is this standard right here. Yeah, okay, I was right. ISO 15408. ISO is the organization for international standards, something like that. I'm trying to remember it. International Standard Organization. What is it? No, it's weird. It's because ISO.
Brian checked.
Oh, International Organization for Standardization. So yeah, like the acronym, like it's like kind of flipped a bit, but yeah, International Organization for Standardization. It's really weird. Okay, so when you look at like the Orange Book, that was from the NSA. That's in 1985. Good Lord, 89. So you have all these organizations here. You have the U.S., UK, Germany, France, Canada. These organizations are part of what? What do you say? They're part of what?
Countries.
NATO. Who said NATO? Oh, you're correct. NATO.
I'm
Yeah.
aware.
So So you look here and you see everyone has their own standard, right? And they're part of NATO. Now, the problem is these countries are working together. So if they all have different security standards, an adversary would attack the weakest link. That's all they do, right? I know it's a different generation, but how many people have been in a high school fight with like 2 or more people? No fighters here? No fighters?
I was friends with the principal.
You were a fighter?
May.
Oh, you did? Okay. All right.
Excellent. I think we were the ones being.
So, okay. Full disclosure, I was a fighter, right? I was a bad kid. Thank God my kids are much better. But if there were like 2 or more, I'm like, okay, we're gonna fight, all right? So I'm looking for the weakest person, the first person I'm taking, right? So I'm looking at the weakest person. Like, all right, the guy, he looks weak, talks weak. Gonna hit him first. Same thing with when you're thinking about technology. You look at who has the weakest standard, the weakest particular security rules applied, and you attack them. And you can use them to get to the rest. And so that's why it was important to have this international standard for cybersecurity. So everybody's doing the same thing and they have to meet the same particular standards. So I'm gonna go down here. All right, so everybody here should be familiar with the lifecycle models, right? Which one do you know?
Agile and waterfall.
Okay, what's agile?
Agile is when you develop the product over and over again, like in small cycles, getting feedback from the customers so that if you develop the whole example 1 month, repeatedly. Waterfall is when you develop the
Okay.
whole product for
So
a long time. And
So is agile for someone who could afford? Because when you're working with agile, what is each development cycle called?
Scrum,
Sprint. Yeah.
sorry, Scrum.
No, sprint. It's not kind of scrum.
Okay.
You're not like, yeah, I'm gonna run a scrum. No. You run a sprint. If you run a scrum, you should
Sprint.
not be running. Yes. So they say, all right, it's like saying that you want to buy something expensive, right? You're like, I want to buy this. It's $100,000, but you only have 15, right? They'll say, all right, well, we'll give you $15,000, and then you can come back, and then we'll build the rest. And so you think of agile like that. You build the rest. You build it in parts till you can afford the whole thing. All right. So you got agile. What else do we have? I know you know something. I'm looking. I can feel it in your eyes. You want to say something?
No.
Sure.
I'm good.
Okay. All right. It's not in his eye. No eye of the tiger here. All right. What else? Okay.
That first you develop everything and that's when you test it on the right side of the model. And this is basically done by the companies. Basically it is that you have time to do testing for each unit. So basically, let's say if you are making a tech spec or something like that, you can use that to validate if the things that are pointed out over there are correct, and then you can go with the unit testing and other testing that you have.
Okay. What is your undergrad in?
In information technology, but I have a master's degree.
In what?
Business administration.
Okay. So the V model, that is from system engineering. That is a system engineering model. And we'll talk about that later. We'll talk about when we talk about the acquisition logistic lifecycle and how the V model fits in and stuff like that. All right. So you have waterfall, you have modified waterfall, which means that there's tons of different development models. There's a ton. The issue with all these models, security was never put in these models at all. Back when, and mind you, I did my first doctorate in computer science. I think I had one security class, that was it. Like nothing was really important about security at the point. They're like, yeah, we got to think about user interaction. We got to think about making sure that whatever you develop is repeatable. But in terms of security, is nothing. I got an entire separate degree focused on cyber, right? But nothing in a computer science program focused on cyber. Because for those doing cyber at that particular time, worked in the federal government. We worked in the federal government. It was all hush hush. whatever mechanisms and methodologies that you're using and frameworks, all that was classified. It was all just hush hush. No one would, I suspect, like Home Depot would be hacked or something like that. So the particular development models that were employed had no security in them at all, right? Because you would always think like, okay, the Chinese they're gonna hack the Department of Defense. Is that feasible? It's all about work effort, right?
Very hard.
Yeah, but I can hack Home Depot. Okay, cool beans, not a problem. Because those people that are working with the federal government, they have everyday lives. They do the same stuff, same people. So it's like, forget it. If I need their data, I can just figure all that stuff out. There was a beautiful site, social media site, when I was younger called MySpace. Right? I know I'm dating myself. So MySpace was like the Facebook on a budget. You can add your own little sprinkles and stars and music. What was interesting, that particular site, and they had I think it was like LinkedIn at that point too. They had it, but people would like the kids would use like MySpace, and they would say, "Hey, I'm going to this school. I live in this area," and you can take those names and figure out who their parents were, and then you can like, all right, this is the kid of this particular parent. They're using X, Y, and Z. Because coming up, a lot of people put stuff on social media. They're like, "Oh, I'm working out. I just had this to eat." They would put there's apps that would give like the workout path, like they're walking this area. Then the other thing people didn't realize was all the metadata that's captured. You have the people that say, "Hey, I worked out." They take a picture or selfie in front of the mirror or whatever, and they do it all the time. I'm shopping. Here's a picture. I just filled my car full of gas. Here's a picture. All that data allows someone to create what's called like an intelligence profile. You can figure out everything about this person, everything, lots of information. Then in this country, a lot of stuff is public, right? So marriage, divorce, you buy a house, you sell a house, speeding tickets, everything is public. So now you can figure out who that person is, where they actually live, so much data about that particular individual. Genealogy, right? Oh, what was that? Yes.
I never thought much. Like I like it go more like it's
Oh yeah, so I did mine, right? So being a African American or Black American, and you guys know the history, I was like, I want to find out my roots, right? So I ran it through, I ran it in there, and then and it was, I do know that my dad is my dad. We actually look alike, so no need to go to more or anything. But when I ran it, it showed like all these thousands of people that were related to me, up to like 6, 7 cousins, and the site is horribly protected. So imagine someone being able to go to that site and start figuring out who this person is, understand like um, any types of health issues that may be related to them. Because the DNA provides so much information, but the actual site to this, the security for the site is horrible. But it gives so much information. I'll talk about this later, and I'll give you some examples of how this data could be used for targeting and stuff like that. Yes.
So law enforcement uses genealogy sites all the time.
Oh yeah. So anybody who does genealogy site, I don't plan on killing anybody. But like when you give your fingerprints and stuff like that to these sites, they can release it to law enforcement. Usually they need to go in, do some type of order and something like that. But here it's like, oh, we had a crime, and let's just run against the database, and it could be part of the database. Yeah, huge issue. All right, so classic, modified. Classic means that everything in the waterfall just keeps going down, right? Modified is realistic. It's like, look, if it goes from requirements to design and implementation, we might need to go back. So that's all this is. And again, you'll see Department of Defense standard, military standard. This is the Bowman spiral model. Again, another model. Rapid application development model. Take a look there. Incremental commitment model. You're just doing certain things at a particular time. And then you have these mesh models where a lot of stuff is meshed together. This is evolutionary prototyping. So here it's interesting. It says, however, it is difficult to determine the level of effort, cost, and schedule. LOE, a level of effort, is what we used to do in terms of like budgets. We say, hey, we're going to charge you $4 million, and we have a level of effort that's going to be one person working full time or 20 hours a week. So a lot of organizations, they don't like level of effort. Level of effort is how much time it's going to take. So now you have to state it takes me 300 hours to develop this particular application, and you have to state that based on what you've done before or prior experience. Go here. So here's just the history of the various process standards. So system engineering, you can see military standards all the way through. Here you have IEEE, ANSI is the so if something's ISO accredited, the standard, the US has the American National Standardization or whatever. That's what ANSI is. And you can see here again, and cozy, and this is the nav here I was talking about. Now for software engineering, these are Department of Defense standards, all the way from 87. You see the DoD standards, become MIL standards, IEEE, then you have an ISO standard, an IEEE standard, and you can see everything feeds into this nav air standard. All right, these are just all the processes here. It just says how it evolves from DoD, MIL, IEEE, ISO standards. This is the famous V here. So project system, software level, process implementation, system requirements analysis, design. And you can see here that you go all the way down here from project system, software, then you go back up. All right, so system engineering process. Again, I tell you guys, there's a lot of processes and standards. A lot of them are very similar, right? So if you know one core process or standard, you'll be able to look at the next one like, okay, I understand this. If you try to dive deep and understand all the nuances, you're going to get lost and you're going to be wasting time. Right? So think about how a project conceptualizes and how it finishes or retires, then you're good.
Companies follow like a waterfall model, and they just try to rebrand it to agile and everything because no one can actually follow all the models throughout.
Yeah. So this is a standard that I worked with when I worked in the Department of Defense as a contractor.
Oh.
And this one I mentioned the V. So you can see there's a V here, there's a V here. This is the life cycle from hell, as I call it.
What is this?
It's everything. So up here is where you have like congressional planning, where Congress gives out money and stuff, and they flow it to you. Here you have every different item, like you have low rate. This should be LRIP, low rate initial production, full rate production, low rate initial production. You have critical design review. Then you have preliminary design review. Then you have software requirements review. So you have all these reviews, testing, and all the stuff that flows in here. And so you generally have someone who's responsible for managing this whole thing. So for like several years, about several years, I was actually either an engineering manager, a director, or a program manager with the responsibility for this.
There's not like a person for each section, it's just a person over all of it?
Oh no, there's many people there. So so what you have, like, let me see if I can, you have what you call a programs manager. Then you have a program manager, and then you have like a project manager. So here, this level I was, and I had $250 million, and it's over a 5-year period. So that's a program, and then programs manages like several of these types of people that are managing stuff like that. Huh? Yeah. So, have you ever watched the movie Black Hawk Down? Really?
I have not.
Okay. So Somalia used to be a not so very friendly place. So there's a guy named Michael Durant. His plane helicopter went down, and he was my boss at one point, and then also my peer. But during the it was a Black Hawk that flew down. And so those Black Hawks were outdated. So during the Second Gulf War, there's a system called the Common Avionics Architecture System by Collins Aerospace, and it's a glass cockpit, right? And so that's what I managed. It was for the 160th Special Operation Aircraft, and so I was managing the glass cockpit, and then later the actual simulator for those people. So say they're getting ready to go to a firefight, they can go to the classified simulator. Hopefully it keeps them alive longer. They fly it, then they go fly the actual battle.
You're just like planning and then creating a glass like panel for a cockpit, basically.
Yeah. Well, let me show you. So we have a little time for you. I send you guys out to have your freedom. And Common Avionics. Oh, this company hires. They're a good company. They're just the worst location in America. But if you're interested, let me know. I have friends who are directors at this company. But again, it's not the best location that you want to be in at all.
Oh, that's not Colin.
Yeah, that's Collins.
Well, they renamed, didn't they?
Yeah, Collins Aerospace. Yeah, they merged.
Oh, I
So-
saw them at a conference.
Yeah, so their headquarters is at a beautiful town called Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Yeah.
Chilling in Cedar Rapids?
What'd you say?
Chilling in Cedar Rapids.
Oh yeah, I was in Cedar Rapids for like 4 years. So this company was like, it was great. I had a great time at the company. But it feels colder there than here. And there's not much to do at all.
Other than chill.
And drink, and I don't drink, so it's like, yeah. No, they made a movie about some guy.
There's a video of Hillary Clinton and she's just like,
What's
I'm
that?
chilling in Cedar Rapids, like, has a drink.
Really?
It's really funny.
I'll take a look at it after class. But yeah, so this is the CAS, so the Common Avionics Architecture System. So they have MFDs, multifunction displays. They have the central display units, and so everything on here, like Blue Force Tracker, to track friendlies on the battlefield. FLIR, which is another company, integrating all the stuff so that the pilot could fly. And then early warning system, all types of stuff. The Battle Command product line. I even worked on another program where the pilots were flying with heads-up displays, and then thinking about how something called DTED, which is Digital Terrain Environment Database, and trying to fly with like 2-meter posts and stuff like that. So it was a good time. It's just not the best location in the country.
Degree to such a management position like that.
I mean, I don't know if you can say right place, right time, but so my career is like this. So I joined the military like 17 while I was in high school. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do the military. My father's a retired colonel, and that time he was a colonel. He was gung ho. He's airborne, air assault, expert infantry, jungle warfare. He's all American badass, right? And I was like, I'm gonna be like my dad. I'm gonna be an Army Ranger. No, I'm not doing for any of that stuff. So I signed up, and they're like, hey, you sign up here. You have to worry about going to war or anything. You get money for school. You get your cert. You get your clearance. I'm like, cool, I can do that. There's no war. I joined in 2000. We all know what happened. 9/11 was next year, and I was on active duty when 9/11 happened. Good Lord, it's another story. But I did that. I got my clearance while I was in 11th grade. I started working at Fort Hood, 3 Corps. I was doing network defense, computer network defense back then. Had my first cyber cert while I was 17. I did basic combat training. It was kind of cool. I was like, got to shoot all these weapons. Came back for my 12th grade a year. I interned at the high school. So I did a work study at the high school for half the semester. Then I went to what's called an advanced individual training at Fort Gordon, Georgia. And I did a 4.5-month system analyst course. I did that. College years, I was a bad student. I was really bad. Like, if you ever watch like these typical American movies of like college kids just living their best life, I did that +3. The only reason I graduated on time and actually early was because I got orders for Iraq. And I said, oh, I need to get serious. They're gonna send me to Iraq. That was the only reason I fixed things up. So I did that. And then I worked at British Aerospace Engineering, worked missile defense. I got paid very low. Found the guy next to me was making more money, a lot more money, and he was doing nothing and incompetent. So then I went to a job fair. They were looking for Collins. It was Rockwell Collins back then. on my resume, I said I did cryptography. I didn't. I just did some online course, put cryptography on my resume. And so the guy looks at my resume, and I said I speak German. So the guy, I walk away. He starts speaking German to me. I respond back. We have a conversation in German. He says, "Cool. You want to come to Cedar Rapids?" I'm like, "Cool. I got family in Detroit. Thinking Grand Rapids, right? Should be okay." I got a plane ticket that said Iowa. I was like, Iowa. You know, I was coming from Alabama. Alabama, Southeast is very diverse, very black, we'll be honest. So I was like, wow, black people live up there. Did like Hispanics live up there? Like, who's up there? So I went up there and yeah, the company like rolled out the red carpet. I worked as a system engineer. I worked future combat systems, EA 6B Block 1, Mod 1. Basically, it's with Navarre on the Pax River. I took on more and more responsibility. Like I said, Iowa's not the most exciting place. So I started grad school. I started my pilot's license. I'm scared of flights. I'm scared of heights. So, but I worked my pilot's license. Like I don't even like to get in a C3 elevator, but they were paying for it. And I was like, you know what? Oh, it's like me throwing away money. So I did flight. I did ground school. Did a couple hours. And I networked a lot. So I joined the Freemasons in Iowa. So I networked a lot, and that's why I say like you can have all the credentials, but networking is key. So through networking, I actually ended up getting into management. The guy who got me into management, I took him clubbing and Phoenix. That's the real story. I took him clubbing in Phoenix. He had a blast, and he said, "Yo, this Mo guy, this Mo kid, he'll go to Alabama. He'll do the job. He has family there." Because at the same time, I was getting ready to take an engineering job to work a program called, I think it was KG3X, crypto modernization. My father was retiring from the army. My sisters had both got stationed in South Korea. I was like, this is perfect. So I went from engineering, instead of going to engineering management directly, I went to program management, and then I managed a program that was like sink or swim. The sink or swim program, I did that for about a year. I got a bigger promotion. I worked with Raytheon, program called Cyanide Radar System. I managed portfolio hardware for my department, selling MFDs and CDUs to the government, the 160s. And then I still manage, it's called ACES, Aviation System Integration Facility. I did that. I went back to Huntsville, worked on transportables. My boss had a heart attack. My employee had a heart attack. So I jumped ship to another company. Oh, yeah, it was bad. Oh, it was bad.
Were they related in any way?
No, huh? It was really stressful. Like I was sick for like 2 days, and I still had over 40 hours that week. It was stressful because like when you're dealing with transportables, like when you're dealing with simulators, these are classified simulators, and plus we're in the middle of war. So now the simulator's down, so they need a new simulator, they do new simulations, they want better and bigger. They're like, oh yeah, we just had a pilot get killed. You need to get something better. So like, okay, we'll fix it. And then we kept signing contracts with like UAE and all the other places. They want simulators too. They want it customized to what they're flying. So it was quite a bit. And then that was really my first time managing employees, and it was difficult to say the least. Because I had one guy who was Ivy League grad, and he was giving me lots of problems. Lots of problems. Like I won't say when I'm not recording, but it was bad. I left that company and then I became a director at a small defense company. I was there for 2 years. And then I left, and then I went to go work as a portfolio manager. I had 3 product lines: information assurance, which is cybersecurity. I had software assurance, which I created, and then network architectures. So I was there for a bit, and then I decided to go to academia, and then I also, I guess, worked on the side as a CIO for another small defense company. Went to St. Louis, created our cyber program, and then while I was in St. Louis, I got recruited to come here. Yeah, I was like, oh, Chicago's less crowded than St. Louis. This should be great. So, yeah, but I can go through like the details later. But I had a really good career in industry, and I still consult stuff like that. So I still do stuff. So, like I said, there's lots of opportunity, lots of jobs to do stuff. You can either do like hands-on work, you can consult, you can develop training courses. There's a lot. Like no one should be unemployed or underemployed leaving this program. Right? That's why I say joining ESSA, these other organizations are important, because there's opportunities, many opportunities. All right, so we're gonna close out. I'm gonna stop this for the guys online. I'm gonna post it, so no worries.